Hey everyone, my name is David DuPree. I'm with the sales team here at Mercado Labs. During this webinar, make sure that you're going to type your questions and comments into the chat so that we can answer those live during this webinar. I'm sitting here today with Mercado CEO Rob Garrison. You may remember him from the last webinar, Supply Chain Transformation Through Automation, which you can find on our website, mercadolabs.com. Great to see you again, Rob. How you been?
Been great. Thanks, Dave.
So let's start off with an easy one. What do you mean by supplier collaboration?
So David, supplier collaboration, it's obvious as the word implies. The goal is to work as closely as you can with your supplier so that you can do three things. You want to optimize your sales, you want to improve your time to market by as much as possible, and you want to reduce your expenses on both sides.
So what is unique about supplier collaboration when it comes to the international side of supply chain?
So David, that's a great question. There's a lot of things that are unique about purchasing products offshore than there are domestically. And so some of the bigger things that create all the complexity which require closer supplier collaboration, first one is custom manufacturing. So when you think about buying something domestically, for the most part, who you're buying it from is pulling it off a shelf in a box and putting it into a truck. Quite that simple, but almost. In the case of international, it's all custom manufactured. So that supplier's not even starting on your purchase order until they receive the purchase order, which leads to the next thing that's complex, long lead times. On average, it takes about 4 months to go from purchase order placed to purchase order received. So you have custom manufacturing tied to long lead times. And then the third thing I would say is the number of people that are involved with this thing makes it really difficult to collaborate without the proper tools. Not only the business entities, meaning the supplier, the factory, the freight forwarder, the broker, the customs group, but also the number of people. You've got a full-blown purchasing portion of this, which requires supplier collaboration, and a full-blown logistics portion. So up to 30 people touch an order. So for all those reasons, international purchasing definitely is a challenge for supplier collaboration.
So is there anything else that makes this complex?
Yeah, David, before, say 4 years ago, I would have answered, isn't that enough? But now I'm going to add a whole other layer to it, because what we've seen is market headwinds. And the market headwinds are well known, but it started with tariffs, which increased prices. We went from tariffs to sourcing shift, which increased complexity. We went from sourcing shifts to a pandemic, which kind of changed both the supply and demand dynamics for a period of time. If that's not enough, when we got back from the pandemic, all of a sudden we faced an ocean container shortage. And one more level is now hyperinflation. So now all of those things I talked about were extremely complex, but on top of that, now we have market forces, dramatic market forces that are taking all of those things and making them even more complex.
Well, okay, that's a lot. I kind of hesitate to ask, but is there anything else we need to kind of lay out here?
David, I almost need to say, I don't want to sound anti-customer, but there's one more factor that's big here that I haven't seen in my 30 years. Some of the stuff I haven't seen in 30 years, but this one in particular is the changing expectations of the customer. Most of my career in supply chain has been sort of a supply model. So you brought in stuff and you had kind of a hub and spoke supply chain. And now it's a demand-driven model. So you've got customers who expect to get whatever they want, whenever they want it. And if you don't have it, they're going to go to a competitor like that. It's one click away. When they buy it from you, they're going to expect you to deliver it however they want, whenever they want, which could include by midnight tomorrow night, right? And on top of that, the consumer awareness and advocacy is also increasing. So you've also got to contend with demands for better treatment of the environment, better treatment of employees. So yeah, you have quite a bit of factors. You've got just the normal complexity of the international market, coupled with headwinds, coupled with changing consumer demands on this side. So yeah, it's an incredibly difficult time to be purchasing internationally, for sure.
That's kind of a lot to wrap your head around. How are those issues an impact on importers in the real world?
So David, good question. And I'm not trying to pick on any importers here, but just think about the last 3 years of any importer USA and what they've had to go through. So let's just say an importer was selling they're purchasing the product for $1. Then they got hit with tariffs. Now the product is $1.20. So they're contending with that, and now they get hit with a pandemic. And so all of a sudden the world is completely turned upside down because you don't know who's going to buy what and who's going to sell what. Your supplier was knocked offline and you were knocked offline. You come back from the pandemic to find out that there's a massive container shortage because the carriers pulled capacity to the marketplace and now you can't get containers. You come off of that surprise, then to find out there's also problems now with raw material and inflation everywhere. So let's just kind of go through that summary. You had a product that cost $1. Your ocean prices got hit with a tariff, so now it's $1.20. Your ocean transportation inflation has been anywhere between 400% and 500%. Your domestic transportation is anywhere between 200% and 300%. Raw material costs are going up depending on the commodity, anywhere between 10% and 50%. And so it's one thing after another after another. All of those costs, all those market headwinds are resulting in much higher costs and much greater unpredictability for importers. And so, I would just say now more than ever, supplier collaboration is necessary because you got to fight these battles together.
Okay, so any more bad news?
Yeah, I don't think I could deliver any more bad news, David. I would say the good news is, in my opinion, technology has finally caught up to the problem.
So when you say technology's caught up, what do you mean?
Yeah, I think the easiest analogy I can give you, David, is we're all now doing Zoom, right? We're doing video conferences, and that sort of got us through this pandemic. But I remember the days when we used to use Skype. And do you remember your Skype name? And could you connect anybody on Skype? I mean, it was almost impossible. So technology's improved to the point where it's finally caught up with the problems that I described. The problem of the complexity, the long lead time, the custom manufacturing, all that stuff. And so the three big issues where technology's caught up is price. When I look at the cost of deploying technology like this today versus even 5 years ago, it's come down by 80%. So the cost of the technology continues to drop. So finally you have an affordable solution that you can deploy, right? Second thing to think about is ease of use. One of the things that's been great about our technology specifically is taking all these things off the shelf from consumer technology and putting it into our product. So a simple example would be native language translation used to be tough. Now it's instant. And so if we're dealing with suppliers in 26 countries and we want to have all 26 countries' languages embedded in our products so that it's easier for the customer to understand what's required, we can turn to all 26 countries, no problem. So ease of use is another big one. But also modern things like tags, embedding videos into your product features, all of those things help. And all those things are now available in a business setting. So that's the other thing big that's changed. And then I would say the last thing is the tools that are built into it. So when we look about how to make it easier, what we want to try to do is make the whole process more efficient. And one of the ways to do that is to build process and workflow into the whole system. But another way to do is to eliminate the work. And so the more that we can automate that entire process, the easier we can make it for everybody. So those are three big things. If you think about the reduction in price, it's affordable now. Think about the ease of use. We've embedded consumer technology into our products. And then if you think about the tools that make the work either more efficient or they make the work go away. So all of those things make technology now a viable option for this that didn't exist years ago.
Okay, so how specifically would Mercado Labs help provide customers the tools for their supplier collaboration?
So David, I think I'd reframe the question a little bit. Not just providing the tools, but it's just improving the entire user experience. And so I think we started with an example because it was a little bit embarrassing for me, but I was in Shanghai before the pandemic. And I took a group of people out for lunch and I went up to pay for the lunch and I handed the guy my credit card and gave me one of these. And I don't speak Mandarin. And so then I pulled out my renminbi, fast, and he gave me another one of these. And I called my guy over who did speak Mandarin and he said, hey, they accept, WeChat or Alipay. That's your two options. But the notion there was that they made it easier, right? They made everything easier. And so the analogy I would give you is what we've done is we've moved everything online. So no different than when you're purchasing something for your personal use. It's easier for you to buy online, right? It's easier to connect with your vendor online. It's easier to check the status of your order online. It's easier to know that your product has arrived in the correct thing online. So when you think about what we've done, we've moved international purchasing online. and we start from the jump. So the first thing we've done is we've enabled online ordering for international. So we digitize the purchase order, we present it to the supplier online, and from that second forward, we're connected to them every way. So we can do online tracking, online ordering, we can do online tracking, online problem resolution, online product disposition. The entire process through automation and through workflow and through tools has moved online. So we're taking what's today a completely analog process. It's extremely complex, as we talked about at the jump. All analog managed with Excel and email. And those tools are fine, but they weren't designed for this. And we've moved it to completely online with all of the tools from subject matter experts that are needed to manage an online import process. So that's the big to-do is, we've got all this great technology, now we've applied it in a very specific way, so it's a purpose-built system, and we've moved everything online so that every party is connected, just like you would be if you ordered something online personally. It's exactly the same.
Okay, Rob, so just to wrap it up, what's the bottom line of improving supplier collaboration?
What you want, David, is a relationship, as I mentioned at the top, with your supplier, where you're both working together to optimize sales. You're both working together to reduce lead time. You're both working together to reduce cost. So how do you do that in an international environment where you're disconnected from your supplier? You're not on the same system, you're not working off the same tools. It's very, very difficult. But once you become connected to your supplier and you have true supplier collaboration, just think about sales. Let's take the first one. How do I improve my sales? What am I selling? I'm selling products, right? The more closely I'm in tune with that product, whether the product's changed, whether we've got less of it, more of it, behind production, post, the more I know about my product, the better my sales can be, because I can inform all of my demand systems and optimize them well in advance of arrival. And then, the next thing we talk about is how do I minimize my expenses? The easiest way to minimize expenses is to become more efficient and to reduce costs. And how do you do that? You put everything into a workflow, so it's as efficient as it possibly can be. You put everybody on the same page, they're collaborating together towards the same goal, and you automate. The best way to reduce costs is to eliminate the work, and automation is the best way to eliminate the work. So that's the second one. The third one I would say is on a reduce my time to market basis. You want to go from 4 months to 3 months, 3 months to 2 months. We've even got one customer now who's going from order placed to received in 28 days. They got it down to a month. How do you do that? You do that with technology that helps you focus on lead times, production control. Why is it taking me 2 weeks to go from order to manufacturing? Can I do it in a week? Can I get my inspector out there the same day? Can I find a supplier who's got quicker production times? Can I leverage that for my other suppliers? All of that stuff requires supplier collaboration and connectivity and the tools with which to help you reduce your cost, increase your sales, and minimize your lead time. So the minute you get the right tools in place and improve your supplier collaboration, the two of you can work together and accomplish all three of those things.
Well, thanks again for your time today, Rob. I really appreciate it. And to our audience, if you weren't able to address your comments or your questions, please let us know. You can reach us at support@mercadolabs.com. And again, Rob, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you, David.